Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio on July 13th, 2016. This is Andrew Fisher, your host, broadcasting Wednesdays from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. On the show today, I am breathing a huge sigh of relief, because someone that I've wanted to get on for a long time but haven't been able to get on because this happens, that happens, a little glitch here, a little problem there. Everything seems to go wrong to get him on the show, but now he is able to come on. Matthew Bueno, a brilliant individual, a very enlightened and aware individual. I learned a lot about him and his work from all those interviews he did on C.J. Miller's show on N5G Radio back in the day. It's been a long time since he's done one of those shows with CJ. I don't know if he ever will again. I guess when I let him on, I'll give him a chance to talk about that. Maybe he'll want to reflect on some of those experiences back in the day. We had some nice conversations on those shows, and I think I'll probably bring up a couple of things that I discussed with him on this show today. I see there's a couple people in the queue here. 267, there is a question mark next to your name. I don't think that's Matthew. I also see 530 and 305. I guess I'll have to do process of elimination to figure out who's the right number here, because I didn't ask Matthew which one is him. But, okay, I see a question mark next to 305. Maybe that's him. All right, well, I'll find out soon. And, well, before I get Matthew on, I just want to start with the news, courtesy, as usual, of Alex Jones and company at InfoWars. Of course, I have to refresh the page here just to make sure that the most up-to-date news stories are here. I'm sorry to all of you who find Alex Jones to be utterly appalling. I know there's a lot of people that do, but he gets the truth out, and that's what's important. Rumor has it he's been microchipped against his will, though. I hope that's not the case. Okay, first article. Man in Black Lives Matter shirt fires 17 shots at cop's home. Okay, what goes around comes around. Here we go again. Violent felon had recently been released after serving half of a 12-year sentence. A black male opened fire on a police officer's home in Indiana Tuesday, just days after being released from prison. Well, is this guy under mind control, or is he just a crazy lunatic? Hopefully it's the latter, but because of what happened in Dallas, no doubt that was a false flag stage event that happened on 7/7. Whoa, the anniversary of the London bombings. What a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. It's synchronicity. Well, meant to happen, I should say. Designed to happen, ritual event, everything. Things do not add up. I'm not really going to get into the conspiratorial aspect of it here, but that has caused a lot of copycats and all that, a lot of people to start to hate the police. And this guy who's been brainwashed by Black Lives Matter, let me make it clear, Black Lives Matter, they are a leftist propaganda brainwash group. A lot of the people in that group, I'm sure they stand for good and think they're fighting for good. But then again, there are many George Soros operatives in that group who know what they're doing and are fighting for malevolent purposes. And when I was at a Patriot Community rally down in Philly, in the not-too-distant past, we had a rally because of the whole thing going on in Oregon and all that, and we had Black Lives Matter protesters giving a counter-protest, and they were calling us white supremacists and all, and I was trying to shout to them, yo, guys, you got this so wrong. We are not racist. Why are you saying this? We'd love to join you. We'd love to help you, but you got this all wrong. You don't understand. And they kept saying bad things to us. However, there were a few people in the Black Lives Matter group that came over and talked to us, and we tried to make it clear to them in a calm, peaceful tone of voice that they are confused about what's going on. And they said, well, we'll look into it, but we have reason to believe you're white supremacists, they said anyway. So, I mean, it's a shame that this has to go down like this. A lot of people that are operatives know what they're doing, but people that have become brainwashed, I feel very sorry for you. You don't realize that you're fighting for a group that's designed to start a race war and all that and divide and conquer us, and that is not good. We don't need that. We need to all love each other in loving, heartfelt ways. And this guy who just fired 17 shots at a cop's home for regardless of whatever reason it was isn't making things any better. And the fact that he was wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, and that says a lot, doesn't it? Next article, armed citizen shoots AK-47 wielding Waffle House robber. It's statistically rare for robbers to use AK-47s, according to the FBI. An armed citizen shot an AK-47 wielding robber at a Waffle House The suspect, Antoine Cooper, 26, recently entered the franchise's DeSoto, Texas location at 2:30 in the morning, robbed several customers, and then attempted to escape. That's when he was shot in the parking lot by a CHL holder who feared for his wife's safety as she was heading to the restaurant. Now, you're probably not going to hear a lot about this on the mainstream news because they want to demonize guns. They want to take our guns to control us. They want to stage things like Sandy Hook and all that to justify taking the guns. And Alex Collier, ET contactee, said back in the 90s, he said, knock on wood, my ET contacts have told me if you lose the Second Amendment, you lose everything else. So make sure that you have guns to protect yourself. Don't let them take them. And they're not going to show stories about people who use guns to stop would-be criminals and would-be robbers, because that's just going to make people think guns are good, and they want us to think guns are bad. Well, this shows that guns are good. It is statistically rare for robbers to use AK-47s. That you usually don't see that much, but, well, he wasn't able to get away with it. And it just goes to show you guns can be used to stop crime. Next article, Obama holds 3-hour meeting with Black Lives Matter leaders. Meeting follows president's speech at memorial for 5 murdered police officers. Black Lives Matter leaders spent 3 hours with Obama Wednesday to demand action in regard to recent officer-involved shootings. DeRay McKesson, one of the group's most prominent figures, joined several other Black Lives Matter leaders at the White House to bring up concrete actions the president can take in order to appease its members. Well, I was talking about how Black Lives Matter is a leftist, radical leftist, George Soros funded, George Soros being a major globalist in this major puppeteer of Obama, and he's controlling Black Lives Matter to a great extent, and this shows it all the more. So if they're meeting with Obama, you can bet that they're deciding things behind closed doors that are not in humanity's best interest. So don't join Black Lives Matter, folks. And if you see Black Lives Matter protesters, tell them, you guys are brainwashed. Please, we want to be on your side. We want us to be on your side. Can we all just get along and fight for freedom and not have to act the way you are acting? Next article, new law blocks police footage from public. Release of dash cam, body cam footage now subject to judicial review. Members of the public will no longer be allowed to access video obtained by law enforcement officers in North Carolina under a new bill recently passed into law. The state governor signed House Bill 972 on Monday, which strikes police body and dash cam footage from the public record. Yeah, he says the bill allows for greater transparency and protects law enforcement from being demonized before all the facts are out. Well, a large majority of viewers, a poll taken by ABC affiliate WTVD, showed a large majority of viewers were not on board with the law, which goes into effect October 1st. Hopefully, this is not going to be used for bad purposes, but you can't help but wonder if it is. The police are always trying to tell us if you have nothing to hide, let us invade your privacy because you got nothing to fear. But how hypocritical and ironic, they're the ones who are hiding police footage from us as if they're the ones who have something to hide. And let me make it clear that nothing to hide, nothing to fear excuse doesn't hold water, because if they don't have probable cause, then you have the right to refuse to cooperate with them, and the right to refuse cannot be converted into a crime. All right, next article. After Dallas shootings, police arrest people for criticizing cops on Facebook and Twitter. The policing of online threats is hardly a new issue. 4 men in Detroit were arrested over the past week for posts on social media that the police chief called threatening. One tweet that led to an arrest said that Micah Johnson, the man who shot police officers in Dallas last week, was a hero. None of the men have been named, nor have they been charged. Well, why haven't I been arrested for this? I've constantly been spreading that video called Secrets Police Don't Want You to Know, like wildfire ever since it came out in April 2013. I must have posted that like maybe 100,000 times or something to that effect over social media and other sites, and I haven't been arrested yet. Why aren't they going after me? Who knows? I don't know. Okay, next article. Visiting a website against the owner's wishes is now a federal crime of accessing a computer without authorization. While we're on the subject of terrible Ninth Circuit Court rulings, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit has handed down a very important decision on the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Its reasoning appears to be very broad. If I'm reading it correctly, it says that if you tell people not to visit your website and they do it anyway knowing you disapprove, they're committing a federal crime of access to your computer without authorization. Well, the federal government does not have authority to pass laws that affect the common people of the several states. Congress's authority to regulate activity in the several states exists only through the Commerce Clause. No commercial activity, no authority to regulate. So This is an illegal law. All right, next article. Venezuela, now a military dictatorship. Those who pose any sort of threat are jailed without charge and without end. Venezuela's Marxist President Nicolas Maduro closed the loop on Monday night, declaring under powers granted to himself by his emergency decree announced in January, later to be declared constitutional by his hand-picked Supreme Court, that his new great sovereign supply mission would be run by the country's defense minister, Vladimir Padrino Lopez. Well, that country's falling apart at every turn. Some people would say, well, maybe a military dictatorship, martial law is justified because it's falling apart. Well, I don't know the details about how bad it really is. I haven't watched TV or anything like that to see how bad it is. I mean, there are situations where martial law could be justified, like maybe if there's a natural disaster that's going to destroy the world or something, and everybody has to be rounded up or something. But if the totality of the circumstances does not allow for rights to be violated, rights should not be violated. Next article, Trump insider RNC speakers getting death threats. We have very real security concerns. Roger Stone, Trump insider, details how many speakers at the RNC rally have backed out due to the number of death threats by numerous radicals, like Black Lives Matter. All right, that's enough of that. I've gone through all that. I see in the queue here Gemini Moon and Sean Cohen. How you do? Two of my most faithful fans. Glad to have you there. And a lot of people in the queue here. Matthew Bueno, you are very popular. I will be taking calls in an hour and 14 minutes at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. First come, first serve will be the first ones up. But, of course, I have to find out who is here, which one of you is Matthew Bueno. So by process of elimination, let me check this out. Okay, hang on. Area code 530. Is this Matthew Bueno?
Is this Andrew Fisher?
Yes, it is. I recognize your voice.
This is Matthew Bueno. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Great to be talking to you. Hey, I don't even want to know what caused the guardian angels, the spirit guides, and source to have to cause all those problems back in the day that prevented us from having a radio show with each other. That's not important right now. Let's let bygones be bygones and let our angels and guides guide us on the best possible show. I did ask them to guide us and protect us throughout this entire show, so I know that they're with us, and I hope you did the same. I don't think we really need to go through your life story for the purposes of this show, because you've gone through that before on many C.J. Miller show. This show is mostly going to be information-oriented and all that. So I guess we'll go from topic to topic, and as things come up, I'll just jot them down and bring up the conversation to new things. So let's, start. You made an altar in your home and began meditating, asking God to send you his relatives, and God did. Okay, you communicated with God. Now, first of all, a lot of people would say you shouldn't be using the word God. That's a very bad word to use, because that's religion-oriented, which is brainwashing and consciousness suppressing. George Cavazos, I remember, said that in a recent Alfred Weber interview. So maybe I'll get your take on why you felt the need to use the word God there, and whether you agree or disagree with that whole thing about whether God is a bad word to use. But I'd like to hear about that experience, like you to talk about how you communicated with the Creator, I should say, or Source, or whatever you want to call it, and what it was like. You got the floor on this subject.
Well, first thing I want to tell you is I just want to tell you a joke. You know what happens when you go camping without toilet paper?
You have to shit in the woods like a bear?
No. You come home with no socks. So I just want to kind of bring it down a notch, because your energy is extremely intense. So, in a very humble way and a humorous way, we would like to come to you with open arms and say thank you for allowing us to be on your show today. And we just send a blessing out to all your listeners, whoever you are, wherever you are, underneath a rock or on the corner or from another planet. We're here for you. And I'm not here to proclaim anything. I'm not here to say that I am 99.9% right all the time. I work with the Ascended Masters. I work with the angels. And this is something that has come to me since I was a very small child. And it's something that chose me. I didn't choose this path. If there's anything else I ever wanted to do was become a welder or a CNC operator, or work out, do landscaping, or doing something that I like to have that, connection with people, with business. And I like that part. But, this is something that, once it comes into your life, it's like, and it changes you, it changes the people you attract, and you start feeling like you have a purpose, and that's pretty much my drive, is because I help a lot of people establish their own connection with their creators, and for me, just really briefly, as a child, we're influenced by a lot of different things, friends, other friends. I grew up with just, connections to African Americans, Chinese Americans, Japanese, Italians, Native Americans, and it was just a mixing pot where I grew up in San Jose. Everybody took care of everyone else's kid, in my neighborhood. There was the cookie kisser. We all knew where she lived because we would avoid that house. Or there would be, the lady who always had the bowl of candy that you can go over and get candy anytime, and it didn't even have to be Christmas or Halloween. And then we knew the people who sold the fireworks illegally. And, we had all these different places in our neighborhood that, as a child, were influenced by that, and it was a safe place. Looking at our day and age here on the world, it's not a safe place anymore. We've gotten to the point in society and as human beings where we're fearful of each other. And where does this put us? Where does this put us for our future? What does this do to our future of our kids? How do we become role models? What's really important here? And so I've taken it on myself to pray on these certain facts that, that affect us, affect our children. And how are they supposed to look at us as role models if we can't get along with each other, in a bank or, in society or in our job or what we do in life, So we have to really look at our future for our children. This is about the kids. This is about our water, having water to drink for our kids, later 10, 20 years from now, And so Creator has a way to teach us the things that we've forgotten in a very, very beautiful, positive way. And for me and the masters, we do it out of humor. We work with a lot of people. We do a lot of radio shows. I work on another radio show called Mystic Radio with Brother Anthony and Robin Alexis out of Seattle, Washington, but their studio here is based in Mount Shasta. And we work with all people all over the world. And what this does is that, our accumulation of all these people and helping people to connect in their own way, is a sacred path. This isn't my way or the highway. This is about teaching people to find their own connection, their own intimate connection with their Creator. When we talk about connecting to God, God is in everything. He's in the wind. He's in the water. He's in your reflection. He's in your food, how you prepare it. He's in the feeling that you put into your life. He's in your inspirations. And most of all, he's in children, because we believe that God is a child, because God is fun. God likes to have a good time. So, we, working with the Creator, there was a lot of things in my life that was just really unclear to me. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict for 28 years of my life. I went to jails, I went to institutions, I went to rehabs. I did all these things to where I was continuously fighting the feeling of being human. I didn't want to be here. I'm not saying that I was suicidal. Maybe there was times that I was that way, but I think that more for me was that I was adopted. Number one, I didn't know who my people were. I had this nagging feeling in my heart and in my body that I was meant for something else, but I didn't know what that was. All I can do was piece together my life and look at all the circumstances that have kept me alive. I mean, there are things that happened to me that I won't go into during my drug and alcohol days that, how did I survive that? And all I could do is just put it up, put a pin in it, and just say that was the Creator. The Creator kept me alive all these years, and gave me that lesson, gave me some experiences that drove me to that light, that drove me to that connection. So one of the greatest things in my life that I like to talk about is that the first time I got clean and sober was that I was coming back from a ceremony up in Yakima, Washington, with my brother Tawanis. And Tawanis is the name that he was given by his elders. And Tawanis means the man who goes up the mountain and falls off the other side. That's his name, Tawanis. And so he took me to Yakima for a ceremony, and he's been trying to reach out to me, teach me songs, teach me how to call the spirits and how to cater to the medicine that I already carried inside. And so he took me to this beautiful ceremony called the Medicine Dances up in Yakima, in Wapato. And so it's a very sacred, and I won't go into it, but it's a very sacred medicine that different families from different parts of that state come and sing at this one place called Short House. And they all they battle each other like we do. We have our dance battle. We have our hip hop battles with breaking and stuff. They have their battles with singing. They sing against each other's family, and then they put out on, they call it the runway. They put out on the floor all the stuff that they want, that they try to outgive each other. They give away Pentland blankets, food, deer meat, elk meat, buffalo meat. They put out their toilet paper. They put out toothbrushes and shampoo. They just put out everything you can think about, like what would be ideal at a dollar store. And then again from like Neiman's Marcus, just a really different gauge of just different levels of stuff they would give away, and they would try to outdo each other. During that time that I was there, it was in an AP ceremony or a sweat lodge, and I had a vision, and this vision was that this man on a painted horse. A painted horse was like a black and white, brown and white horse, came to me, and he told me, he says, you need to go to where the water meets the fresh water, the salt water meets the fresh water. And I thought about it. I said, well, that was probably just a fluke. It's just one of those things you see when you go to ceremonies. And I didn't really believe a lot of the visions I had because it didn't have any validity. It didn't have any background. It didn't support anything I was already doing because I have been in that other world, the drug and alcohol world for so long. It was like I was losing my conscious contact with that sacred part of myself. And as I was there at this medicine act, I had this vision, and then so I just discounted it. Whatever, came home, and about a month later, we had that in 1989. We had El Nino coming through. I grew up in San Jose, so it was like happening over in Santa Cruz. And I was living with a woman down there, and she was taking me down a place called Devil's Peak and Devil's Highway down there off of Highway 1 in Santa Cruz. And we were driving down there, and and it was El Nino. There was those tumbleweeds going across the road, and then I started to, in that moment, for whatever reason, that vision started to talk to me again. And so to speak, I started remembering it. Why I remembered it in that one moment, I don't know why, but I know why now. And so as we were driving along, there was over to the right, I saw this river just from the flooding of the rainwater coming down, and there was this big river going into the ocean. And right there, it occurred to me, that's what he was talking about. He wants me to go down there to this where the fresh water meets the salt water. So I said, hey, pull over, and she says, okay. So she pulled over. What are you doing? I said, never mind. I was excited, but at the same time, I didn't know what I was doing. So I grabbed my rattles, which is some deer hooves that I got from a gift from Yakima, and I learned some songs. So I went out, and I was running down to the beach, and the wind is whipping, and it's raining, and there's some surf guys up at the beach, and they're telling me, hey, you shouldn't go down there. Those some big waves will wash you out. And I kind of just didn't even think about what they're saying and went down there to the ocean. And I'm standing there, and I just started singing at the ocean, like as if they were talking to me and I was talking to them. And the whipping of the wind and the chaos and the lightning and the thunder, that was like the rage that I felt inside my heart. That was the rage I felt in my body because of all the pain and all the energies and all the, the jails and all the girlfriends and all the relationships and all the things I have just crapped away because I was in anger. For 28 years of my life, I was in anger because I didn't know who my people were. I didn't know who my family was. I was adopted, and I just didn't like myself. And so I was singing in front of that ocean, just yelling at God. And finally I stopped. I put my rattles down. And my grandfather, he crossed over, 22 years ago or something like that. He gave me this coin that I always kept with myself, and it was like a good luck coin. And it was a coin that was the same year that he was born. I think it was a quarter, and 1944 or something. And so I kept it into the ocean. And I just said, screw it. I don't got anything coming. This is my life. I don't got nothing happening for me. This is, I don't care if I die right now. This is where I'm at, and I'm shouting at the ocean, and I'm telling God to F off, and then all of a sudden I felt like two hands came over and grabbed my legs, and I just felt paralyzed. I couldn't move. And all of a sudden there's this this energy coming up my legs. It was so intense and so like voltage coming up my legs, going up into my thighs and into my stomach. And as it hit my stomach, I started getting scared because I'm thinking right away, oh, crap, I just pissed God off. Now he's going to take me, And so I have all this. I couldn't move. I'm standing there trying to struggle to move. And as soon as the fresh water came over and touched my foot, and then the salt water came over and touched my toes, boom! It kind of like it released something in my body, and it felt like it melted all that hatred and all that anger around my heart chakra, around my heart, and I just dropped to my knees. And I was just sobbing and crying, and I felt drained. I just felt like something was just ripped out of me. That anger, that rage, that resentment, that grief, that bitterness, it was just taken out of my body. And I'm looking up at the sky. And what made me look at the sky? I don't know. So I'm looking up at the sky, and there's the sunshine just broke through the clouds like a Hollywood movie and just shined right in my face. And it felt like that beam was going right into my third eye. And as I felt that light hit my face, I felt everything else, my body just calmed down. I felt I felt peaceful. I felt like I surrendered finally. I felt all this beautiful energy. And as I'm doing that, the waves calmed down and the wind calmed down and the rain stopped, and I'm sitting there thinking, this couldn't possibly be for me. What's going on here, And so it just makes me so happy to know that God speaks to us in a lot of different ways. And to me, that day, God spoke to me through the waves, through the sunlight, through the rain, through the wind, just to show me about what my life really means. I have this connection, this beautiful connection with my Creator, because this is what I was made for, and this is what I follow. And so as I turned around and I walked back up, everyone, there's a couple people were crying for whatever reason. I don't know what they were crying about, but they were crying and saying, oh, that happened for you. And the guys were like, who are you? I'm like, I didn't care at that time. I just wanted to get in my car, call my friend up, and tell him to take me to an AA meeting. And I'm ready. I'm ready to quit my lifestyle and get back on the path. And, and there was so many things that happened after that, but that was the main thing that changed my life. That was the main thing, because that was not man-made. That was not something that you can buy or you can rent or you can make. I'm sure that Hollywood could do a better job than that, but, it was something that happened for me that was for me in that moment, in that time of my life, and it just turned everything around, and it made me get on this path to where I started accumulating and looking at my life as a gift. No matter what happened, no matter how many times I went to jail, no matter how many times I got in trouble or went to rehab, no matter how many times and how many people I hurt, there was a part of that in my life, in my book, in my story, that has helped me to move forward in my world. So not only do I could take that knowledge of everything that I learned, from that time and put it into my future, but I also learned to have compassion for those people who are suffering from drugs and alcohol now, people who are suffering with the things I've done. I can have compassion for them because I lived through it. I had this huge transformational time that was able to give me this new purpose in my life. And for me, ceremony is about where it's at for me. It's about ceremony. And ceremony can happen at any time. You can do it. You don't have to wait to be in church. You don't have to be in a sweat lodge. You don't have to. You can be driving in your car and ask for a blessing. You can be in the shower and ask for a blessing. You can be on the toilet and ask for a blessing. Doesn't matter where you are. Creator and the masters and the angels, they all want to be listened to. They all want to help you. And so I've been able to be chosen for this path to do this one thing. And for me, every day is a gift. Every day I try to look at the positive things that what Creator is trying to teach me. And so, one of the greatest things that we have is that we have children in our lives, and they look up to us. When we're singing on the drum, or we're sharing songs, or we're talking about medicines or different herbs that grow up on the mountains and the high mountains, we get to teach that. We get to show them different animals. We get to, tell them jokes that we get from our elders, like the toilet paper joke that I told him to begin the show that I don't think Andrew found too exciting. But, this is all about learning to live your life the way God has provided it for you. And we all have our different connections, our different paths, and it doesn't mean that it separates us from each other. It just means that we have an eclectic view of sharing those parts of ourselves with in an intimate way with each other, with one another. And my grandmother told me a long time ago, she says, if there was ever a sin in the world, as the religion puts it, sin is about having something that was given to you by God and not using it in the world to help other people. And that stuck to me. That really stuck to me. So I'm always striving every day not only to work on myself, but to be able to be available for those who are ready to take the path and to be on this journey, And to say that I speak to God, every day, every moment, But for me, God has a lot of voices, has a lot of faces, because we're here on this planet from what He created, what she created, what they created, And I think that every religion that describes the connection about love is part of God. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you believe in, as long as you love yourself and you care about your kids, even the atheist. God doesn't care if you don't believe in God. God still loves you anyways. It's not about that. It's about how you treat one another. Because when we go home, you can be like the Egyptians and put all your treasures and your money and your paintings inside your coffin, but that doesn't matter, because all we really have is our flesh. All we really have is just our word, our actions. And I feel, for me, that's what's most important, is to be able to make a conscious contact with somebody and help them smile that day or help them feel better that day, and that's what we're here to do. So thank you, Andrew, for letting me talk about that one sequel.
Oh yeah, I do regret saying don't talk about your life story, because that was very, very interesting to say the least. Some of the stuff you had to say there, and I actually thought the joke was okay. I mean, I didn't. I don't really have much. I don't really laugh unless I'm talking to myself.
I'm just trying to push buttons.
Okay, that's cool. So regardless of whether people say you should use the word God or should you not, I think one thing we can all agree on, this is going to, by the way, be an do you agree or disagree question, a very common question on this show, you might notice. And I want to ask, do you agree or disagree with the statement, God, source, the creator, whatever you want to call it, it is infinite consciousness. God is infinite consciousness. Do you agree or disagree?
How much time do we have? Infinite consciousness.
I want to take calls.
That's pretty deep. Where did you get that from?
Well, it's just Jordan Maxwell. When I had him on my show, he was saying, I do believe there is a higher power source, but I don't really want to get into too much of a conflict or debate as God is. But then I said, well, Jordan, what isn't it pretty clear that God is infinite consciousness? And then I told him about how reality is altered if we observe it or measure it, and we know that because of the double slit experiment that was done in Vienna, Austria, and also the mathematics behind the Mandelbrot set. The Mandelbrot set looks like a giant beetle. It's a finite size thing, but it goes into infinity. And the thing is, no matter how deep you go into that Mandelbrot set object, no matter how small the part of the whole is, if you change, no matter how small that part is, just a fraction of a bit, then you change the whole entire thing. And that implies that by just blinking our eyes, we are changing the winds on the planet Jupiter, albeit at so small levels that we can't imagine it. But my point in saying that is that we are infinite consciousness. Everything is a manifestation of what we give out. And I think it makes sense to say that, well, yes, the creator, God, whatever you want to call it, it is infinite consciousness. That's probably the best way of looking at it. So do you agree or disagree?
I agree to a certain extent. I think there's much more than that that meets the eye. I think that it is infinite, but there are a family of infinites. This is not the end. This is the beginning. And I guess consciousness can be described by your own experience. So yeah, I guess I would have to say I do agree, but there's much more than that. There's more to love than love. There's an infinite divine creation based on love, and it goes beyond anything we've ever known or even prepared to understand, you know. So, yeah, I guess that would be something I agree upon.
Some might say that maybe the terminology is a little bad there. Some might say you should say God is infinite soul, because it has been said by some that consciousness comes from soul and spirit comes from soul. And just for the hell of it, I think I'd like to bring up this common subject of conversation that I bring up, the difference between soul and spirit. Now, some cultures say that they are one and the same, but others would say, no, there is a difference. Like, for example, the Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartzis, he said that he thinks of spirit as the fuel that gives power to the soul. You think of the soul as the engine, and the spirit as the fuel that powers that engine. And George Kavaslis, he said you could think of spirit, like think of it as the word spear and the word it, like you're throwing a spear at it. You're throwing a spear at something, and where he get that idea from, spirit comes from soul, and like your soul is what consciousness comes from, and also spirit comes from it, and the spirit goes into certain places, certain times, and affects certain things. And it's like little spears coming out of soul. And I guess one could say that you could think of that as a fuel coming out of the soul. So this whole idea of difference between soul and spirit, what's your take on it?
I don't know, but all that makes me laugh. It's just so funny how people want to break all that down. For what purpose? You know, it's really beautiful to be able to describe what spirit means to you. And, you know, and I believe, again, everyone has their own connection with spirit and soul, and everything that we break down, you know, it's about your own human experience. You know, it could be one thing, one moment, it could be something totally different when you have a near-death experience. You know, I know a lot of people who have died and come back, you know, and with the way they talk, it just gives that more exponential, more hope about what we have to look forward to. So if you want me to, I'll break it down for you for the way that the masters have taught me. Spirit has the archetype of a master. The master self inside your body is something of like a consciousness, or your super subconsciousness. It's like there's a part of yourself that knows the rules and knows the objective, but also knows what's true for you, you know, and what's true in your life because of what you've experienced. So you get to accumulate energies from past lives, you know, and we believe in past lives, that got us here, and that spirit is able to travel. Now, the spirit is not just one thing. It's multiple things. It's just not something that carries the energy and helps the soul to thrive. You know, that part is true. That's what I've experienced in that. But the spirit also is like, it transforms. It allows you to ascend in different parts of your mind and the different ascension processes to be developed along with the plateau and energies that thrive from the planet Earth. You know, there are many, many, many galaxies out there looking to Earth to help Earth. Earth is like a project. It's like a fixer-upper. You know, like a house you buy that, you know, it's dilapidated and the plumbing is bad and the electrical is bad, and it's like a project. And so Earth has become like this project because we're so far behind in our wisdom. And I mean, there is so much conflict in the world that, you know, the galaxies, the galactic forces, they're just always here trying to raise that vibration by giving us experiences. So maybe as children, they treat us like kids a lot. Maybe as children we'll finally get it, you know, how easy it is to learn from these energies or these lessons. So the spirit, you know, it helps you to not only move beyond different dimensions in your dream state. When you're manifesting something that you want in your future, your spirit can travel, if you know how to do this. You know how to travel to your future, dissolve all those conflicts that are coming your way, and then you can broaden that aspect of that reality into something bigger and better than you can ever think of. Now, the spirit also has the ability to go back in time and look at the energies of the lessons that you've had in the past to bring them into the forefront, into this reality. So the spirit is much more than just a vehicle. It has the portals and energies to travel into your inner space. You know, when I was in my 20s, when I first took metaphysics in 1989, I woke up and And we used to travel in my spirit body, and I used to travel to different worlds. I used to go to and meet these different guides, and, you know, I became different animals. And the spirit, when you meet other civilizations who also travel in their spirit to meet you, you know, there are no mistakes. You know, when you get to a place inside yourself and you travel metaphysically or meditationally into another place, one of the things to learn is that your spirit has a certain kind of a signature. And the signature is your love base. Is like when the spirits say, okay, we want you to show the spirit who you are. You know, the other spirit's coming to see you. And so what you do is you just open up your heart. You open up your love. You open up that light, and that divine light, that extension of yourself, shines from your heart, from your light body into your spirit, and shows this vibration or frequency energy that amplifies out of your body. And that spirit, that signature of your spirit, other spirits recognize who you are. And then through telepathy, you know, you can pick up on what other spirits are saying to you and what their intention is. And so they're always out there to teach. They're always out there to try to give, you know. So the spirit, you know, is about, for us, for me, my belief system in the way that I understand it, is that the spirit is as a traveler, a space traveler, that you can jump into it like a vehicle any time to transform yourself. Did you know that back in the 60s and 50s, or even the 1800s, Native Americans can jump into a sweat lodge and become an animal? In the second round, they just jump out as a deer, come back, they would jump out as a different animal every time because their spirit was holding on to all the memories and energies of their ancestors. So as the spirit, you know, when you bring that energy in, it's like a ceremony. You make yourself, that spirit becomes your temple. And you can jump into that vehicle and you can program it or experience anything that you've ever wanted to experience. You can just leave it up to your high self to teach you the things you've forgotten, and your spirit, the divine consciousness, will take your spirit on these different journeys. So for me, the spirit is like a vehicle that is continuously, like the master, your inner master is teaching you how to accept knowledge, how to look at yourself without conflict, how to change aspects of yourself that you want to bring out into the world. Okay? So the soul part of our bodies, the soul part is like it's like a doorway. It's like a connection to all these different parts that when we're traveling, you know, into our soul part, that soul part is about really expanding your realities, expanding. We live by soul people. You know, we don't live by flesh. We live by soul. Because by soul, we're connected to everything. We're connected to the trees. We're connected to the water. We're connected to the insight. We're connected to the fire. You know what I mean? We're connected to all the elements on the planet. The soul is part of everything that there is, and that's the divine connection that we have with the Creator. So when that energy comes in, like comes into your auric field, right, your soul emanates that beautiful part of yourself and creates that personality or that color. You know, when you have a certain color, maybe you're a giver, maybe you're a lawyer or a teacher, or maybe you're a lawyer, teacher, caregiver. You know, you'll have a purple energy around you, and that's emanating from your soul. You know, and so your soul holds on to all these different energies that are in and around your connection to the planet Earth. And the planet Earth and the universe, you know, activates that soul part of yourself. So when it's that part of that portal that allows you to connect to different parts of yourself, connected to the planet, connected to other people. I'm going to go a little further with this, and just because I'm here at the floor, but your soul is also connected to different parts of your soul that reside on the planet. I don't know, if there's been a few people that I've talked to, but your soul is also connected to the other part of your soul. It's like when our soul is broken up to different pieces, because it's our belief that we're here on this planet to relearn the things we've forgotten. And so the soul, when it comes into the planet Earth, is broken up into, let's say, 7 pieces. There's probably more. And I've had meditations where I've gone in and visited different parts of my soul as the travel, as the vehicle, as the doorway, and I saw myself as a black man, driving in a truck, smoking a cigar with a fishnet in the back of my truck. And I could feel myself driving somewhere in New Orleans, and I must have been maybe 86 years old. And I had leather-looking skin, and I'm listening to music, and, and I'm driving, and I could feel myself, who I was in that man, because that's part of my soul. And then we go on to soulmates. Soulmates is that connection to ourselves that is a part of us already. And it doesn't mean lover or this is the one I'm supposed to spend my entire life. It means there's just a part of you that's coming back to connect with you. And so when we meet different people, different aspects of our soul, we become greater defined by how we treat one another. And by bringing all our soul parts back together, we're able to amplify a lot more higher collective, universal collective, to help change the planet. So the soul part for me has always been like it's a portal. And that portal, it takes you to different parts of yourself to leave your spirit and your body to have a deeper understanding about what your connection is with Creator. And so for me, the spirit is the vehicle and the soul is the portal.
Okay, fair enough. And you mentioned you're very big on past lives. I'd like to give you the chance to talk about this and what you think is the significance of having past lives and all that. But one thing about past lives that I'm interested, maybe you can answer this for me, hopefully you can, is that one of my previous guests, I don't exactly remember who it was, but he talked about how maybe it's possible that your past lives will not always be consistent depending on how you go about your life in the present. And where does he get that idea? Well, he got that idea from the realization that everything is actually happening all at once. There is no past, there is no future. There's only the present, there's only the now. And he hypothesized that, let's say, the way you're leading your life now in the present, if you were to do a past life reading and imagine that you are a soldier in Genghis that's actually pronounced, Genghis Khan's army, the Mongol, and you were in his army, and then, well, let's say a little bit down the road, you, in the present time, you change the way you do your business, you change your life and change your way of doing things. And, well, if you were do a past life reading at that point, you would see that, no, one of your past lives is no longer as a soldier in Genghis Khan's army. It's actually something else, because in the present you have changed yourself, changed who you are relative to everything else in infinite consciousness. Therefore, you will have a different past life than you would have had you not changed your life. However, I've spoken to other guests about this, and they told me, no, it doesn't work like that. You will have the same past regardless of how you change your life in the present and how you're regardless of how you're planning to change your life in the future, if we are going to talk about the future existing in a third-dimensional sense. So do you think it may be possible to have different past lives by changing your present actions? And after you answer that question, I'll give you the floor to talk about what you think is significant regarding past lives.
Okay. I guess past lives could be, it's more of a feeling, not so much of a thinking. For me, Archangel Michael, he's a really powerful master, teacher, brother, friend. He teaches what we've done here in the past in our history on planet Earth. I believe that if someone believes it so heartedly, if that's what they want and that if that's what's helping them, and that if they're a spiritual soldier and they're doing what they're supposed to do on this planet, so be it. I don't have any judgment about what people think about past lives. It's to each his own, really. But for me, Archangel Michael taught me a technique about going into my past lives with Archangel Michael, Saint Germain, and John the Baptist. And all three of them, taught me, before they taught me this, they showed me who I was. And it's Christ, he's a beautiful teacher. He's a beautiful master. And he teaches about self-love. He talks about how to love yourself, in divine timing. And what that means is that, it's about so much now about who you are today than what you were in the past, and that's what's important. It's about the strides that we make to make this a better place. And so I went inside, and they were sitting me down, and Christ came to me, and he goes, I've chosen you. I want you to be the one to help the souls who are stuck between worlds to cross over. And I said, wow, that's kind of trippy. I kind of already do that. He goes, well, yeah, this is an important part of your life that I want you to start looking at. Now I'm sharing some intimate things here, okay? I just want the audience to know that this has been my experience, okay? This is something, I wasn't on drugs at the time, even though I've been asked that before. And this is a really personal thing that I'm sharing with you, okay? When we have that moment where we can't explain what the feeling is, or we can't use science, or we can't use a dictionary or a thesaurus to describe the feelings that we get from meeting the Master or having this experience that can't be created by man, it's something that we take with us, that I take with myself as being serious. And so when he sat me down and he told me this, he says, I'm going to choose you to do this, and are you following what I'm saying, Bartholomew? And I said, what did you call me? He says, you're Bartholomew. And I said, Bartholomew? Who's Bartholomew? And he says, ask your dad. Now, my dad that raised me, his name is Matthew Bueno. He's in the Catholic Church. He reads the Bible and this and that. And I have never really been in religion. I went to Catholic school, went all these places, but I felt like I needed more than that, And so that's a whole different story. And so I talked to my dad, and he says, "Oh, Bartholomew, he was one of the disciples." I'm like, "Wow, he was a disciple?" He goes, "Yes." And I said, "Wow, okay. Well, I don't even know what to say about that." But okay, that's what it was. So I went back inside and I talked to Christ again, and I said, "So I was a disciple?" He goes, "Yes, yes, yes, but I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on who you are right now. That was the past. What you learned from then is who you are now. And I want you just to bridge those two energies together and feel your purpose. Feel the love that you created in that lifetime and what you're bringing now." And so Archangel Michael stepped in and he says, "I want to show you something that it will be vital for your growth and for the growth of other people on this planet." I said, "All right, let's do it." So he took me back in time. And he took me to a time frame where I was a woman sitting on a canoe. It must have been in the, I'm going to say maybe the 40s. And I'm sitting there and I have these really classy white shoes, or these nice shoes. And I have an ankle bracelet that matches my shoes. And it's a little embarrassing, because I was a woman. And so I'm sitting there and marveling at myself. And he says, "I don't want you to worry too much about being a woman. I want you to feel what you're feeling in that moment." So I started feeling what I was feeling in that moment. I felt sexy. I felt wonderful. I felt peaceful. I felt happy. I'm sitting there, and I have these white gloves on, and my hair's all done up, and I have this huge, umbrella, sitting on a canoe with a man who's dressed he has one of those long mustaches, and one of those flat hats, and and so it was funny, and I was being courted by this guy, and I'm sitting there feeling the sun on my face, and the sun, as I was feeling the sun on my face, it reflected back to the time when I had that experience on the ocean, sit down there in the sunlight, and the sun was just giving me all this peace, and I felt the same energy as I did now. And so when he took me back there, he says, "Now I want you to know that this feeling that you have right now can be changed. It's the feeling, because whatever your reaction is, that's generating the feeling in your body. So when you get these feelings and you travel back in time, let's say you go back in time and you want to see when you were a teacher, you want to bring back those energies to be able to take that energy into the now moment. Maybe you want to go back and somebody is an alcoholic that and they got to go back to their past life. What we will teach you to do is to help those people find those energies, find that feeling, and then dissolve that feeling. Because everything that was created by God begins with the feeling. The feeling of God, the feeling that energy is love. And when you feel that energy, it can be altered, because it all began with God and it ends with God. And he said that when the great Creator makes this energy, when he makes this feeling inside your past life, it can be altered, because the energy that we put, it was like we're human filters. How we react to a certain situation is what dictates our next actions. So let's say you hurt somebody or you murdered somebody. That energy that you've murdered is an awful feeling. They can actually dissolve that feeling and bring it back to God consciousness, and then activate it back into your body to where you feel forgiven, where you feel you don't have to carry that burden, where you feel that you don't have to put that into your new world. And so they taught me to do this, and this is a really powerful technique called karma clearing, that we're able to go back in time, clear the energy from what was created to change the reality of the now, You know, people who have phobias, people who have fears, and the thing about this is that one of my biggest challenges in this life as a healer, as a light worker, is that I've always wanted people to feel the experience. I want people not just to tell them what they're getting, but just to have them have an experience like me, you know, because, you know, 20 years ago, if you were telling me this stuff, I would just be like, yeah, whatever, you're loaded, you know. But now, from having all these experiences up until now, it kind of builds on everything I've been doing already and gives it validity, gives it substance, gives it life, gives it, you know, gives it that awakening. And so I want people to be able to feel that. So Archangel Michael and Saint Germain created this activation chamber, connection with your high self. So as that energy comes back into that person's body, they can feel that place where they have tightness, you know, maybe from that fear or maybe from that phobia, you know, that tightness in their stomach from that worry is just dissolved because you brought that energy that was dissolved back into that God consciousness back in the body, and it heals the body. It helps the body to remember how to heal itself. So in past lives, you know, when we're working with those energies of past lives, it's an old energy that can be shifted. The energy of now is what could be created, and the energy of the future is what we build on from our past to get there. You know, we learn from our mistakes, we learn from what we learned, and we create a new reality.
Yeah, make sure the reality you create is a positive one, and I'm sure that's going to be a lot easier. You did say at the beginning that we kind of live in a world of chaos right now, and I think that's just because this is a year, this 2016 year, where things are going to have to change, and there's going to have to be a little chaos to awaken people. Do you think maybe there is some truth to that idea?
Yes, I do. You know, and I believe that every stage of our development as a human being, as a human race, you know, we're going to come into a lot of different levels of lessons and understandings, and basically they put here for us to either, you know, choose. You know, and it was crazy thing about being human is that, you know, we, all of us, when we make a decision, we know what the right thing to do, but we actually do the opposite. For what reason, you know? And I can only speak for myself, you know, and I feel that the Creator had made a magnificent planet for us to live on. He gave us, you know, bodies to live in. He gave us love to love, and I believe that the chaos that's happening in the planet is something that was planned, because it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for those of us who are looking to have a stronger connection, is that, you know, we can change tomorrow. We can change that. We can change that by changing ourselves. You know, 360 degrees, if we can change ourselves and just do the opposite of what we would usually do. And sometimes we just got to be the better man. We got to be the better woman. Remember, we got to apologize, even if we're not in the wrong, and put ego aside and all that belief and just step up, you know. And a lot of this chaos for me that I you know, because I live up in the mountains, man, we don't have chaos up here. I mean, we don't even have traffic, you know. I mean, the worst thing that could happen here is that maybe, you know, someone's cat gets run over or something, but, you know, or the bear dumps over the garbage can next door. It's not, we live in a very protected place up here in Northern California, up in Mount Shasta. You know, a lot of stuff up here that protects us. But the chaos we're always praying. You know, my dad is always praying. My other dad, I have a Karuk father who adopted me almost 9 years ago, and he talks and teaches about the planet, you know, what we need to do here. And so we're doing that, you know. And I'm teaching classes right now in level 6. You know, I'm teaching, you know, through my classes that I teach on from a website, that, you know, I'm teaching people how to, there's a way to alter the energy on planet Earth that's happening. But people have to care. It's not about me as an individual going to do this all myself. I can't. There's no way. You know, I could do a lot of things, but I can't heal the planet by myself. It's going to take all of us. And so we're trying to raise consciousness and that vibration to help shift that, you know, help shift that. And the more people that we can get to have a connection, you know, I think the possibilities are endless about the love and the peace that we can bring to this planet, you know. And I think, like, all this stuff, you know, that's happening right now is just a wake-up call for a lot of us to really look at what we're actually doing to ourselves and to our families and to each other. You know, so that's what I have to say about that.
I think you're definitely on track there. That is what's going on. And, well, I think I should ask 50 minutes till we got to start taking calls. So I'm going to ask you a question that I asked you back in the day when I talked to you on a CJ Miller's show about many of the higher dimensional beings that you call into your work. Now, I just got asked this again because if I don't think we're having much of a radio conversation here. So a lot of those people you call in, like Jesus, for example, and all the other religious figures, if you would ask someone like Jordan Maxwell, they'd say, well, those religious figures never existed. They're just fictional characters taken from astrological signs and all that, and many other characters that you find in religious texts are different versions of that, like Jesus is the same as Horus, which is the same as Dionysus, and so on and so forth in many cultures. And but others would assert, well, no, it's not like that. They all existed, all those figures. It's just that their stories have been twisted by the powers that be, and the thing is, you're trying to access the version that has not been twisted. And other than that, people say, well, the fact that thoughts manifest into reality shows that all those beings, the fact that we can think of them existing, implies that they absolutely have to exist in some dimension, realm, universe, or whatever term you want to give the place that they are existing in. So for all those people those skeptics like Jordan Maxwell who would say those beings don't exist, why are you calling them into your work? What would your answer be?
Oh, man, you really did your homework. I'm really impressed by what the questions that you're asking me today. That's awesome. Well, everyone has their experiences, and everyone has, what they want to say, what they want to bring. When you have that moment and in your meditation, and you can't, for the life of you, describe, you can't discount it. They're touching you. You can feel their energy. You can feel their love. They're looking right into you. And you feel that connection that is so immaculate and so beautiful and so expansive, and it teaches you something about yourself that you never realized. That reflection, however it comes to you, for me, Christ came to me because Christ teaches about love. And, and that connection I have with Christ is really super intimate. It's not something that can be bartered. It's not something that can be traded. I'm not going to turn Christ into the car lot to get a brand new Cadillac. Christ is Christ. Regardless of what you want to say about him, he's somebody that I completely look up to and I want to learn from more. And maybe he comes from a benevolent being that shows himself as Christ, and that behind that, maybe it's something else, and that could possibly be something that could be very true. That is my experience. One of the things that I love about Christ is that he teaches how to love an individual behind the presentation. So whenever you have someone in your life that, is presenting something other than what you see, he says to love the spirit behind the face. And so that was one of my greatest teachings from Christ. When he came in that way and started teaching me that, I was making more of an effect on other people, and I had an effect on myself. And what's beautiful about Christ is that when he teaches, he's not just about teaching you about loving yourself or loving others, but when you are a student of Christ, from a biblical purpose, or maybe just, Christ as a person, likes to wear khaki pants and a pullover, I don't know. Christ comes to me as a benevolent being full of light, and he can shrink himself from the time that he was a child until the time that he is now, and he shows himself the way that we understand it. And for me, that's what I love about God, because God is always in creation, and we're here in creation to create. And if we didn't have, if we had structure and tools and things the way they're supposed to be, that wouldn't be fun, because I never paid attention in school anyways. I was always looking out the window. I wanted to not go to church. I wanted to clap my hands and sing and dance around and sit by a fire and talk to stones, I wanted to get visions. I didn't want to be sitting on the bench. Christ taught me to get in the game. Get yourself out there. Deal the cards you were dealt. But then get another deck and add it onto that, and then get another deck and add it onto that. There's just so much more here than meets the eye. And because the masters come to me in the ways that I knew them in the lives that I had with them, I've had many, many, many lives. I've been told over and over that I have an old soul, and I believe that, you know. And I didn't believe it at first because I thought those people were just trying to, you know, get on my good side. And as I live through my life and whatever I've learned, the teachers I've had, and the miracles that I've had in my world can never be contested by someone else's opinion of what they feel it is. That's their reality. I don't have any judgment on that, you know, at all. That's where their perception is. That's cool, but I'm doing what I'm doing because it helps and it works. And, you know, Christ, his love, his teachings is like whenever you work on somebody, you're the student. You know, you're not above anybody. You're not below anybody. We're at the same place. And he teaches about reflection, you know, looking at ourselves as each other. You know, we're here to teach one another and share our experiences, strength, and hope. So for me, you know, the masters, you know, they're in immaculate characters, especially Merlin. You know, I mean, he just makes me laugh, you know. And I'm like a child. I'm like a child on a playground with all these different kinds of ethnic groups of people that I grew up with, and the memories that come from the masters and what they bring to my life can never be, you know, told any differently, other than they just bring joy and they bring love and they bring energies beyond anything I've ever imagined. And, you know, and I could never have what I have today if it wasn't for them. And so, you know, and I can only base my experiences on everything that I know now. So thank you for asking me that question.
All right, another question I asked when back in the day when I spoke to you when you were on C.J. Miller's show about the specific entity known as Sai Baba. Maybe you might remember how I brought up how in David Icke's Children of the Matrix book, David Icke wrote that Sai Baba is listed as a pedophile, con artist, thief, and murderer. And you actually, I believe, spoke to one of your other Ascended Masters or Angels about that, and I believe you said that person spoke to Sai Baba and said, "Yo, one of Matthew Bueno's fans thinks that you're a murdering child rapist," and Sai Baba said, "Who? Me?" And I believe that's what you said happened. And however, I have spoken to some other people about this ever since that day I talked to you about this, and they have asserted, no, Sai Baba was definitely not a fraud. He was definitely love and light, and whatever David Icke sources were, they were obviously wrong about that. However, Swami Shivananda Giri, who was a guest on my show, he did say that for a little while Sai Baba was faking some of his acts. He's not a bad guy, but some of the acts he did have true powers and all that, but he was maybe kind of using them in a bad way, like so bad karma caused him to temporarily lose his power and all that. So for a little while he was faking. Now I don't know if that's true or not, but all this confusion about Sai Baba, just for the hell of it, I got to ask you again, any comments or statements?
That's funny. So Sai Baba, brilliant man. And it goes back to what we were saying before. You know, everything begins with God and ends with God. Our bodies and our experiences are filters that we project out in the world from what we've experienced through our life. And we make mistakes. We're humans. You know, that happens. Hey, I'm not perfect. I know I lost my power in my 20s. You know, I tried to heal when I was loaded. You know, and they took my powers. You know, I was very, very powerful. I was able to move things with my mind. I was able to hear people's thoughts. You know, I was able to astral project. You know, I was able to break down walls, all these powerful things. But I mistreated my power, and I had to learn a huge lesson. And that's not the first time. You know, there's other lives that I know I've done that, and it's always been because I've had a crutch. You know, and so Sai Baba, he was a person who made mistakes. And one of the beautiful things about the Masters is that they all, you know, they weren't all perfect. We're never perfect, but we're here to learn. That's why they're here, you know. They're here to reflect the things that they were as human beings so they can have the compassion, so we can have the compassion to let their love in, you know. Sai Baba, you know, as he's looking at me right now, it's you know, it's a really broad expression, when we allow those energies to infiltrate. And we're looking at a reality as who they were and what they did, how they influenced the people when they were alive. We're looking at right now about who they are in spirit, because they can only, for me, it's been my experience that they can only become a master when they learn their lessons. And Sai Baba is one of those ones that they have learned his lessons. I'm not going to say I'm going to start channeling Hitler. I mean, that's just beyond me. But, I'm sure he's up there somewhere, and either in, recalibrating himself or in another life trying to rewrite his wrongs, And we all have a chance to live. We all have a chance to advance. We all have a chance to ascend. It's not just about, what we've done and then characterize ourselves as what we were and what we did. It's about what we do, who we are. If I can have one person, one of the masters come in like Sai Baba to help heal a child, from their crying or from being deaf, or taking the cancer away or taking the AIDS away, I'd say Sai Baba is a good master. Sai Baba teaches me about the magic, but he also talks to me about learning the disguises that we put on ourselves and learning to really feed the animal that drives to help us to become better human beings. So that's Sai Baba to me now. He teaches me, when we have voices in our head about telling us something negative about somebody else, he helps me to look at that and see what the lesson is behind it. Is that coming from me or from an outer source? And so when he teaches me those things, I look to him as a guide or as a teacher and as a brother. If I put them above me, then I'm in a totally different realm. If I put them at even with me, then we get to do things together as a team, as I do with all the other masters. But for me, Sai Baba, he's an inspiration to me because I relate to his life. I relate to his struggle, and it's by relating that we grow.
Thank you. Thank you. I had to ask you again. It was a very interesting subject, interesting question to ask. I had to bring it up again. So even though it's not quarter past the hour, I guess I might as well start taking calls now. I got two people in the queue here. So first, this is my local area, by the way. Area code 267. You are on the air. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question?
Hi, yes, hello to you both. Thank you for taking my call. My name's Jennifer, and I'm, pretty local from the New Hope area. New Hope. So, gosh, this is a loaded question. I don't know if you can answer it. Do you see me having an experience where I break out of this, the daily grind, and I am able to speak to my guides in the way that you do and help others and stop worrying so much, about making income in the more conventional ways?
And your name is Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay. Jennifer, do I have your permission to connect to your high self?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to connect to the masters real quick and just kind of look at your spirit. So one of the things, Mother Mary, she says that you have a lot of burdens that you put on yourself. And sometimes the burdens can come by overthinking and overanalyzing, overanalyzing your life, looking at what you want to do, but never really going for it. She says that when you have the heart of hearts, when you have a mission, when you have the intention, the spirit, the universe will open up a path for you to be able to see what's true for you. Now, if this is just a hobby or if this is something really like you have the intention to create in your world, this could be something that you can do. The first thing is that learn to get quiet, because your mind is always going. So with your permission, Jennifer, I would like to call in Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, John the Baptist, and Archangel Michael to stand behind you and to help to raise their vibration just a little bit, just so you can feel their energy and their love that they have for you, that you need for yourself. And sometimes, as people, we need to be helped. We need what they call those wheels you put on bikes so kids can learn to ride. Sometimes we need a little help and just to be in balance. But Archangel Michael says you can find a way to feel from your heart, your feeling, your energy, your love, And that connection, is what you need to start listening to first. When you start to listening to your own heart, that's where the masters are. That's where your guides are. And it might not be something that I do, but it's something that you do. It's something about you, what you create for yourself. So we would like to go ahead and push that energy through your body and just start to pull some of that sadness and that disbelief and some of that energy that you have inside your heart chakra, pulling all that stuff out of your lower back. And you have some burdens inside your lower back as well. And then some of these burdens are like things that you've self-sabotaged, things that you need to forgive yourself for. And these emotions are stuck as like conflicts in your body, around your pancreas, around your liver area. Maybe it looks like there's some other stuff going on in your liver too, some grief in there. So we're just going to pull all the energy out and pull it down your leg. So I'm going to ask you to do, Jennifer, I want you to ask in the best way you know how, to ask your high self to send down a white light cord through your brain, down your spine, out of your feet, and into the earth. And as you're doing that, you're becoming a conscious connection between heaven and earth. All right? And so I just want you just to have faith right now, have a belief that things are going to get better for you. And yes, anything's possible. Anything you want to do is possible. It's just about what your drive is. What's your intention? Are you sincere about this path? Are you sincere about what you want in your life? This is not a game. This is not for show. This is about really living the life that you want to live and the life that you were created to have. So we want to bring all that truth into your body. So we're just sending that down your back and down your front of your body. And there's some other stuff going on here in your ovaries too. I just want to ask you just really quickly, when's the last time you've been to the doctor?
It's been a while. Long time.
All right. Have you had any stomach issues in the last couple of weeks or a couple of months? Do you know of any pain in the pancreas area or on your ovary region in your left side?
Definitely back pain, but not that I'm aware of.
All right. So we're just going to clear this energy out, all right, for you. I'm just going to put purple light in there and then just send it out and pull it out. And I'm just going to send that down your grounding cord for you. There you go. Perfect. All right. There's some things I could say on the air, and there's some things that I'm avoiding. And that's and this is I want to be able to be cordial, be respectful to you and your privacy. So that energy is moving down. Mother Mary says one of the ways that you can learn to have a better connection with the masters or your spirit guides is to spend more time by yourself, more time in nature, more time speaking to God or speaking to the Creator or speaking to the trees or whatever you feel is your connection. It feels like there's a lot of trees that should be your connection. And if you push your back against the tree and you ask for guidance, you need to learn to pay attention to what's around you, and nature will speak to you. Okay?
My middle name is named after a tree. That's funny. I spend a lot of time alone. I really do. I mean, I had distractions when I'm alone, but I'm very alone.
Okay, we'll spend some time in nature. Sit by a tree, and then ask. And ask for guidance. Ask for a sign, and I believe that something will happen for you. Since you're asking right now on the radio with us, so we have we don't need a telephone. They're listening to everything you're saying through me. So that's awesome. All right. Thanks for calling in today.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much. Call in anytime. Take care now. Later. All right. First of all, quick question in the chat room here. Sean Cohen asks, what about Osho? What was his deal? A total con man. And does he have any female masters? I said I would ask you about that. Do you have any comments?
Who's Osho?
Oh, well, I guess that answers you don't know anything about that. So
no, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, so I guess you're not the right person to be asking. All right, well, with that being said, let's move on to the next caller. Area code 305. You are on the air. What's your name? Where you're from? What's your question?
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm calling from Florida.
Hello.
And
hi, Maria.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Wow, I listened to your story. It was very fascinating. I guess my I mean, I haven't gone through like things like you, but I've been where you were and feeling like really depressed and really feeling bad and wanting to die and stuff like that. And anyway, but my question is, I'm just basically open to any message that you may have for me. I just want to be happy again, and I just don't know how to get there.
Okay. All right. Do I have your permission to take care of yourself, Maria?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call in, let's call in Sai Baba. Sai Baba, Babaji, Krishna, Buddha, and Archangel Michael. Okay, so call them into your field. And so what Sai Baba is saying is that you need to get back into your creativity. You know, there's a parts of yourself that, you know, are very creative, you know, and you're not following that. You're not listening. He says music is a big part of your life. And it's really important for you to feel that connection with happiness, with joy, with even ballroom dancing, someplace where you can move your energy. Because he says you have so much to give. You have so much inside your body, inside your emotional body, that you need to express yourself. Even if it's about learning to get up every morning and writing down seven things about being grateful. What are you grateful for? You know, write down 7 lines about what you're grateful for. And he says, I guarantee you that your life will change. And the energies that you feel like you are being held back or feeling like you're at the back of the bus and not the driver, you know, it's really important for you to feel like a leader. So with that, I'm going to ask Archangel Michael and Maitreya to bring in an activation for you and just clear your energy field. And I'm just going to clear your energy because there's a lot of energy around your tummy, around your lower back, around the back of your neck and your shoulders. And Moria says, just drop your shoulders. You know, it's like you're high strung and it's like your shoulders are becoming your earrings. And it's really not important to have your shoulders that high, but just to relax your shoulders. And they'll send an energy down to your crown chakra and down around your body and just clear out some of that energy in your etheric body. And some of the things that are happening inside your lower back, too, is that you're very empathic. You're a very empathic person where you pick up on other people's emotions. And there's a lot of energies that you picked up from your family, your mother, your father, that's in your lower back, and you're holding it for them. There's no reason for you to hold on to these energies. They're their own people. They need to take care of themselves. But as children, you know, we don't know the difference. You know, we do this, and we hold on to the energies of our parents because that's the closest thing we have other than, you know, before we recognize the God in ourselves. So we're just going to pour all that energy out of your back. Do we have permission to do that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we're going to do that right now. Are you excited? I'm excited to help you.
Yes, I am very happy that I got through to you. That's the reason I was on hold for an hour and a half.
Holy mackerel, Andrew. No, just kidding. So, so we're just going to pull all the energy out of your lower back. The other thing, too, Mother Mary says, is that you have to learn to trust yourself. Okay? She says it's so important that you learn to start trusting yourself. When you start doubting yourself about the choices that you make, then it's like you make it a habit. And then you make it into a program, and then that program becomes your life, and then forget about it. You know, it's like anything you try just doesn't work out for you. She says if you start to believe more in what you do, follow through, even if it's a step forward and 3 steps back. Make sure you start trying new things and let yourself be led rather than being pulled. You know, you don't want to be dragged into something. You want to make a choice that, you know, that helps you, that inspires you, and that brings joy into your life. So one of the things that you have is that you have around this, your second and your third chakra, which is your spleen chakra and your solar plexus, you know, your motivation and your sexual energy, is that these are like tantric energies that need to have an output. You need to be able to, you know, force yourself to be creative, even if it's just, you know, going out and take a walk in the park and feeding ducks or something, you know, or looking at, you know, see something that stands out to you, make a collage, you know, if you see a leaf or you see a flower or you see something on the ground, even a candy wrapper that stands out, take that, because God shows himself in different ways in your life, and it's up to us, up to you, start paying attention to what that is.
Yes,
okay,
you're right.
Help you a little bit?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right, and I do
You're so
pick
welcome.
up on people. Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a great day, Maria.
Okay, you
Have
too.
a great day. Thank you very much for calling anytime. Take care now. All right. First of all, before I go on to the last caller in the queue, Osho, Sean Cohen asked about it. I just looked it up on Wikipedia. Osho was a mystic guru and spiritual teacher born in India. The International Rajneesh movement, Rajneesh movement, has continued after his death. The page name is actually Rajneesh here. Do you know anything about that guy now that I brought it up?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
So, nothing.
Okay, so let me just tell you, okay, so really quick, the masters that we accumulate are the masters that I've had in prior lives, and the energies that match me with them are the ones that, they choose their people that they contact. I have a friend, a real good friend of mine, his name is, you might want to look him up, Greg Baroni. He channels John Lennon, and John Lennon has a lot to say about the politics. And so, a lot of the people that come through us, I can do a stretch and ask Archangel Michael to bring Osho in, on another time. But, it's all about, what we're connected to and how they want to speak through us. I don't like to be a revolving door or a fast food restaurant where I just allow different energies to come through, because it's about the integrity of spirit. When we don't want to channel Larry, Curly, and Moe. We want to bring in the high energies that are going to make a difference in people's lives. So it sounds interesting, Osho. I'll have to look him up and see what that's all about. Maybe at a future time we could talk about that.
Okay, just wanted to point that out. And all right, one more caller in the queue here. Hopefully, people will call in if anybody wants to get any assistance from Matthew. The call number is 646-478-4747. If anyone wants to call in, I can take calls till the end. If not, I'll just be asking Matthew some informative, enlightening questions. So this last person in the queue it's one of those 111-111-1111 numbers. So 111, you are on the air. From what's your question?
Yeah, thanks. It's a Skype call. It comes in like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Matthew. My question is, I'm looking for a
Who
little
are you?
insight. I'm well. I've been listening to your show and really interested in some of the things that you've had to say.
What's your name?
It's Trish.
Trish. Okay, welcome, Trish. Where are you from? Where are you calling from?
New York.
New York. Okay.
So my question is, I have had some extremely stressful situations around a building project, and I believe they've come to an end or they've receded a bit, and wondering, A, if you can give me a little insight or a better way to deal with it, because I can't let it go.
John the Baptist says that it's going to open back up for you. There's some energy that's stuck. There's too many people, too many chiefs talking about the same thing. He said that it's going to open up, and give it 2 to 3 days, and everything will start opening up the way you want it. That was even before I even asked your permission. Do I have permission to connect your myself? He's just in the dugout, man. He's like, I'm next up that bat. I want to speak. I said, okay, go ahead. So, John says that there's a lot of things holding you back, a lot of things that are holding this project back. But one of the things that you got to learn is that, speak your truth. Stay in your truth. And he says that when you speak your truth, you'll be determined and you notice how far you'll get with speaking your truth, because you have a really strong voice. You have a very, very leadership voice, and you need to learn to trust that more and not just let yourself, be guided or be led by other people. But he says in 2 or 3 days' time, everything will start to open up for you again.
Okay. So I guess the follow-up for that is this whole process has led me to question my discernment and a bit of trust. And I'm wondering how I get over that.
Oh. Let me ask, what guy wants to help her with this? Mother Mary, come on in. So Mother Mary's coming in, and ask your question again. how you want to build your trust in what?
How do I trust my discernment with other people and trust them? Right now the radar's kind of up.
Right. So Mother Mary says one of the things that you need to let go of, she says you got to let go of the past. Some of your past experiences has driven you to be in this place where you are right now. And a lot of this is karma, she says. This is karma. This is about what you've developed. This is what you've caused to yourself. But it's just a lesson. Remember that everything that we do in life has meaning. And everything that we put aside not to conquer are lessons that are going to end up coming back in the future anyways. So why hold off? Let's just take care of it right now. So do I have your permission to go into your Akashic files and to change these energies for you?
You do.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going up to Master Kuthumi, and Master Kuthumi is going into our files. Jennifer, right?
No, Trish.
Okay. Trish. Okay, Trish. That's right. Trish. Okay. So we're going to Trish. Yeah, so we found these 3 different archetypes, these energies happening here. Okay, so the first one is that Master Kuthumi says you need to learn to let go. He says you have a really hard time letting go of things that hurt you or people that hurt you in the past. And it's really, really easy to get really, really conflicted with yourself about your decision-making. So he says that they're going to change that energy for you by going into your Akashic files and dissolving that. Do we have your permission to do that?
You do.
Thank you. So I have to ask you this every single time because I can't change your will, and I'm here to support you in what you want for yourself. That's why we're doing this way, by asking you permission every time. So they're dissolving that, and they're bringing that energy into your crown chakra. And so one of the things that Mother Mary wants to help you with, too, is that, she says you have a really big heart, but you're thinking on so many different levels all at the same time. It's like if we ever had you on our team as a multidimensional healer, you would be really good because you're very fit. You're very third dimensional, but you also can learn to be fifth dimensional. You can manifest so much on different levels, working in the future, working in the past, working in the present, working around the corner, delivering papers, going out and getting lunch and coffee for everybody at the same time. Okay.
I am good at that.
Yes, you said. So, all right. So as they're clearing that, the second one that's coming up is Master Kuthumi says that in this particular past energy is that sometimes when you give and give and give, sometimes you can get a resentment because it's not being reciprocated, and when it's not being reciprocated, it feels like you're giving and you're being taken advantage of. Does that resonate with you?
It does.
Okay. So with your permission, we're going to clear that energy in your high self and bring that energy down into your body. And mostly putting it in your heart. Beautiful. What's that?
I said you have my permission.
Okay. So the third last one is, Master Kuthumi says, one of the things that you have inside yourself that you need to, and it's, when you have something inside you that you're aware of, but you don't share it very often with people, it's just an opportunity to look at yourself. And this opportunity is like when you know that you're stubborn and you know that, you have a hard time letting go, sometimes you just got to look there and think about how much better it would be if you could just stop being stubborn and stop being so holding on to every little thing that hurts you in your lifetime. And he says, then it will start to ease up because you're not the only one looking at yourself. Remember that the Creator, God, the source of divine love, lives within you. And so when you look at these things that you want to change about yourself, you'll have all the support and validation as this occurs. So we're clearing all that up for you and clearing up the stubbornness. And some of the stubbornness comes from your father. So we're just going to just, kind of just dissolve some of that energy, but still keep the love and connection there. All right. Beautiful. All right. That lighten it up a little bit, Trish?
It did.
Okay.
And I was going to mention that I'm actually familiar with Osho, only from, I don't know anything about him, only then that people have referred me to read his book. Supposedly he is the person to learn how to meditate. So that's just wanted to pass out. That was my only understanding of him.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're the second person who said that to me now, and I better go look at Osho. It sounds like something I'm being told what to do. Fine.
Well, the person in the chat room says that she thinks he was a con artist, but she then wrote, if you asked me. So, well, then again, I brought that whole thing up with Sai Baba being a con artist in David Icke's book, and a lot of people said, well, David Icke got his sources wrong. So you got to be careful about that. So, Use discernment. Discernment's where it's at.
All right.
I just want to
thank
say,
you so much.
yeah, say thank you to Andrew. Thank you for letting these people call in today, and thank you for allowing us to work with them like this. This is really nice of you to do that. People just calling in to be able to get our help. It's amazing, man. Thanks for doing that.
You're very welcome.
I agree.
Anything else?
I guess I would ask Matthew, is there anything else I need to work on?
Oh, my gosh, Trish, where should we start? Hey, let me give you my personal number. We don't have that kind of time on the air, I don't think.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll just thank you.
520-276-3642 is my phone number.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I hope you didn't mind giving that out on my radio show. Take care now. Well, is that number on your website? If it's on your website, I can imagine you wouldn't mind giving it on my radio show because it's already public anyway. So, anyway, it's you've already stated, so I guess I don't really need to talk about it any further. So, that being said, Matthew, I wanted to ask you, I remember in your previous one of your previous talks with CJ, you said that when you go to like retreats and all that and conferences and all, whenever everybody's eating, you often you are a meat eater, you still are, and I am too. And I don't see myself actually giving up eating meat entirely. I will say, over the past year and past few months, my amount of meat that I eat has gone down. I suppose you could say that, like the graph showing how much meat I'm going to keep eating as the time goes on, it's going to get closer and closer and closer to zero, but it's never actually going to get to zero. I think that's called a hyperbole. I could be mistaken about that, but that's how I see my meat eating habits go. Now, some people I know people are going to roll their eyes when I say this. Santos Bonacci. A lot of people, when I mention Santos Bonacci, they're going to roll their eyes because they think that guy's totally lost his marbles because ever since he got out of jail on that bogus warrant, he's totally acted differently, and he subscribes to the ridiculous idea that is the flat earth theory. But all that aside, he does say some pretty enlightening things. And one thing that, well, some might say this is good advice, some might say, no, he's taken off the deep end. He says, I feel really sorry for people that continue to eat meat because they are never going to be able to resolve karma. When you eat meat, you continue to create bad karma for yourself. And, well, I make sure that whenever I eat something, be it meat or anything, I always ask my angels and guides to make sure only the highest good comes from that food, and I always try to bless it with the love energy from my heart soul essence. So being a meat eater yourself, do you think that you're going to do yourself some harm, and if not, why not?
Wow. Okay. Questions that I've never been asked before. That's amazing. Okay. So yes, I'm a meat eater. My reasoning is that my name is Matthew Joaquino Mato, is Lightning Bear. Okay, that's my spirit name, and I'm a bear. And a bear, his role is a healer, compassionate, big and strong, energetically, and can hold on to multiple energies while working on people, on people over the phone, like I'm doing now, people in person, groups of people, be able to stand up and talk in my role as a bear. Now, the bear's role in life is meat, is salmon, is berries, and so I have to follow that because it's my tradition. I follow what my bear does. I'm also part coyote, which you've noticed in the show, Coyote's the Trickster. And so I have a lot of meat eaters as spirit animals, okay? And my eagle, my hawk, they're all meat eaters and fish eaters. So my main diet is what they eat because I want to maintain that connection in that way. In the summertime, I kind of lean back and I do more fish and I do more pastas. The reason for that, because the energy is lighter, right? And your body heats up faster in the summertime. So I don't want to have a bunch of meat in me that I have to, get overweight myself and have to burn through and cause cholesterol. So, when in the summertime, there's a lot more fish. I do steak once in a great while. We have Panther Farms up here, which is grass. They're more grass-fed animals up here. Buffalo meat, more lean. Elk meat, more lean. You want to take animals who are not just sitting around in the grass, watching the sunrise and the sun go down. You want an animal that you're taking their flesh, that they have to fight for their life. The elk, they live up high in the mountains over here, and we take them down. We pray about it first. Pray about those animals that we take down before we take them down. Deer, backstrap, and all that stuff. It's about prayer. It's about that connection, because we're all connected. So everything I do, it's a spiritual sense. It's a spiritual awareness. I don't go to McDonald's and get a hamburger and pray over it. All I do, if it comes to that. But, for me, karmically, as long as I have a connection and I respect what I eat, if I catch fish, I need to eat it, or I need to bury it for the garden. Everything is about respect. If we take as much as we need and not take more than we need, then we'll be fine. So I believe for me and my body type and the energy that I put in my body is a spiritual connection.
Yeah, but just like me, I said that I've noticed, I don't try to eat less of it, but I feel that as the Earth's vibration rises, an unavoidable consequence to that is that my meat diet will go down. Have you by any chance noticed that, or have you not really paid attention to that?
No, I actually haven't been paying attention to that, because once you live a certain way, it's and it works for you. It's like, why change it? Why fix it if it's not broken?
Fair enough. All right. Earlier in the video, I heard you mention something about using crutches. Now, this brings up a subject that's never going to get old on my radio show. The issue of when something you're trying to use for spiritual enlightenment is a crutch. Now, many people who hear this would say, they often think of psychoactive substances, like drugs. Well, drugs, they say, is a derogatory term, but even psychoactive drugs like psychedelic ones like cannabis, LSD, mushrooms, Amanita muscaria, and ayahuasca, and all those other plant substances, they would assert that even those are crutches, as you don't need them for enlightenment. But then that raises a whole new can of worms in regards to things like crystals, or I like to use Egyptian healing rods. In fact, after this interview, I'm going to go out and walk on a trail with some Egyptian healing rods and splash in the creek for a little bit to become one with nature, and also calling in your angels and guides. Some would actually go as far as saying your angels and guides, they're crutches. You don't need any of those things because you are infinite consciousness. And that's not me talking, that's Stuart Swerdlow talking when I had him as a guest on my show, and we kind of got into a little bit of a heated debate about this when I was on the show with him. I was like, okay, fine, fair enough, you're infinite consciousness, maybe you don't need those things, but my biggest issue with that is that you're missing out on the spice of life known as variety. Same with the chakra system. George Kavassilis, he says, I don't use my chakras because that's part of the brainwashing. I just prefer to go strictly with my heart soul essence. And I'm like, well, okay, fine, bless you for not being able to get bored just doing that, but hey, you're missing out on all the fun, you're missing out on all the variety by not using your chakras. Spice up your life a little bit. So this whole issue about crystals, healing rods, chakras, and all that being crutches, do you think that's a stupid way of looking at it, or do you think there is some truth to that idea?
Let's just change the word to crutch to ally or support. When you put it in a derogative or negative way of crutches, it's like it becomes against you than rather for you. I believe, and it's been my experience, that every medicine that comes to you calls to you. There's some medicines that, because, I like Christmas. I like getting gifts. I like all the color. I like all the flair. I like all the decorations. And every aspect of every herb that comes to you, or any way, it's like it's another part of you. It's a different part of you. It feeds and talks to a different part of your essence, different part of your spirit, the master part of yourself. And, medicine is called to us. I tried to make medicines call to me. That was my mistake. I tried to make things my power, and it just didn't work. There are some things that we use and as we pray on it, like the first time I took peyote, right? I went to a peyote meeting. I prayed on it for about 2 years. I asked Creator to send me a teacher that has integrity, spirituality, and connection, and most of all, love. You know, I didn't want some dude throwing drugs at me to tell me to take it because I'm going to see great things and my life is going to change. No, I want to be able to know that I put my investment into Creator to show me the things that I need to learn for myself. Number one is patience, not just jump into any ceremony that there's going to be serving ayahuasca or peyote. I want to make sure that this is meaningful to me. This isn't something I'm just going to use for just a one-night stand. This is something that's a part of my life, part of my heritage. And yes, it is. It's part of my heritage. Peyote is part of my heritage. And so it helps us. It helps us. And done in the right way, in the correct way, you know, making that prayer, making those ties, doing that Inipi ceremony, and really asking for Creator's advice to show you what this is for you. After 2 years, I found a group, 2 people married from Battle Mountain, and they came up and they did this beautiful ceremony, everything I asked for. I mean, there was the Inipi, he painted our faces, we got to put together the teepee, he told the story of how peyote came to the people, he talked about the respect of the different medicines that come to the people, why it's used, how it can heal. Everything that I asked for was right there from these people because we prayed about it for the 2 years before it happened. So I believe for myself, everything that comes to us is a medicine. And some things can be misconstrued. If it's not for you, it's not going to work for you. You might have a great time with it, but then sooner or later it's going to leave you, or it's not going to guide you or support you on your path that you've taken. You know, I have a lot of brothers and sisters that use cannabis, you know, and a lot of them I can't because I'm an addict. I'm an addict at heart. And if I use pot, you know, it's like it takes me to other things that I don't want to, you know, go to. I've already done that part of my life. But for my brothers and sisters, they're beautiful people, you know, and they're funny, and, you know, they are who they are, and they help people. I have no judgment against that, you know. That's their path, and that's between them and the Creator, you know. And I believe that everything that we have as tools is tools. And, you know, it's something that gives us a greater feeling about connection. And if that's their connection, that's their connection. It has nothing to do with me. It's none of my business about what they, you know, what it means that way. It's just if that's their connection, then that's what make it. But for me, crystals, you know, rods and stuff like that, I use crystals. I use it for a specific reason. You know, when I'm using crystals to connect to my heart, when I'm working with back-to-back people, I need to be able to have the clarity, the grounding, the understanding, and the compassion. And, you know, working back-to-back, I got to clear my energy constantly, you know, and keep myself in focus. So I use rose quartz, and I use an amplifier. I can't even think of the name right now. Amethyst. And the amethyst helps me to stay away from my ego, helps me not to feel like I'm in charge. It makes me to be a student. It helps me to be a conduit. And so I use these 2 crystals to help me stay focused on each individual, you know, and that's just me. That's what I'm used to. You know, I talk to rocks. You know, I speak to rocks. So rocks speak back. Trees speak back. I have a connection with the earth, you know. One time I was out fishing with my buddies up here up north, and they were out doing something else, and I was up here talking to the water, and the water told me where the fish were, and I caught fish, you know. And then after I caught fish, I was so grateful that I put the biggest fish I caught, I put him back in the river. No, that's a lie. I actually kept him. But, you know, I had good intentions of doing that. And so after I sat there and I thanked the water for giving me these fish, I heard a song. And after that song, I started singing that song. And after I heard the songs, I heard the spirits that were watching or were living in the water. And they just talked to me, told me stories about the people who lived on this land. So there is connections with everything that we do. And like you said, it's about variety, but it's more than that. When we create a connection with crystals or our chakras, we're creating a new world for us. We're creating a brand new perception. We're opening up our minds, and that's what it's about, becoming more aware, about having an open mind, about not judging what other people do or say or believe for themselves. It's about living your life to the best, to the fullest. So, yes, I use everything. I use crystals. I use stones. over at a friend's house. They had a bunch of steel rods with brass plating, 30 of them, and then I made I put it in there, I put them, I pounded them in their yard as a Palladian orchestration of energy to put a pyramid, galactic pyramid around their home and their land. So in other words, we blessed their land with these rods and made it a constellation of Palladians that I meditated on, and they showed me the pattern. So I made this pattern. What was beautiful about it is that when we put these stakes in the ground for their backyard, we had a focal point. We had the 4 direction flag, and we put black onyx stones in the shape of the 4 directions. And then they told me, the masters told me to put them all the stakes in the ground, put these 2, 3 of them in, and put this gate out here, and around their home. And then at the very end, Master Gutumi told me to pound these last 3 in to close the door. And I didn't know what he meant by that. But after I did that, I turned around and you could see this beautiful spiritual pyramid blocking negative energies, because some friends of mine, they're very powerful. And, and people are jealous and have a tendency to throw negative energy. But, so we put a connection, a protection grid around their home by using these rods. So everything has a purpose, everything has a purpose. And it's just about where you are, it's not for everybody, but I don't take crystals in the sweat lodge. Everything has its place, I'm a pipe carrier, so I don't use peyote on a weekly basis or ayahuasca. And if it calls to me or I have a dream about it, I'll pray on it to feel if that's what I'm supposed to do. But everything is about listening and pay attention, and I feel that everything that we use, can be used in a way that has been gifted to us on this earth. So, yeah, thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, and getting back to what I said earlier about how, maybe people will notice over the course of time in the near future as Earth rises in 4D, 5D, we'll eat less and less meat. Another unintended consequence, unavoidable consequence to that is that as the Earth consciousness rises, we will find that we don't have to call our angels and guides for help anymore. We won't have to access crystals for help anymore. It's not, I'm saying we should give that up entirely, but it's just we won't feel the need to have to do those things because we're moving closer, we're ascending, if that's the word you want to use, to our infinite potential. Therefore, all those aids are not really necessary. Call them aids, crutches, or whatever you want to call them. They're just not necessary. Do you think that, in the near future, crystal salesmen and maybe drug dealers who sell psychoactive substances will notice a decrease in profits because people won't have to buy psychoactive drugs and things like crystals to do their spiritual work, and maybe the angels and guides are gonna get a little bored because people won't ask them for help as much? Do you see that potentially happening in the not too distant future?
Man, you really asked some loaded questions. I love it.
I asked my angels and guides to guide us on this show. Did I not? Yes, I did. So they're making sure I do. And just, by the way, there's 7 minutes left on the live feed. We can go a little past 8 if you want, but if anybody wants to listen, they'll have to call in. But let's try to keep this show to 2 hours just so we don't go way overboard. So 7 minutes left on the live feed, just so you know.
Okay. So for me, I guess it's an individual path. We all have individual paths. I can't speak for everybody. For me, one of my teachers, he's a medicine man from Kenya, Idaho, and he told me that. He says, you're coming into the time where you're not going to need your angels, you're not going to need your masters. And I said, well, why? I love family. Why? The more the merrier. I love the fact that Krishna can take me into meditation and then take me into another meditation inside the meditation. All these guys that we work with have different worlds and different energies. Why wouldn't you want to have that connection? It's for me, it's like extended family. The more the merrier, because they make me who I am. They mold me into the person that I'm becoming. And I think that every aspect of crystals or medicines and all that stuff, if it makes you who you are, it makes you happy, then go for it. It's not something that I can judge. I could see a little bit into the future and say that because the earth is evolving, we're going to have choices. You know, we're going to have choices, and the choices are all about what you feel you have a connection to. You know, it's an individual choice. It's not a justification. It's not a rationalization. We're not trying to please everybody. We're trying to stay true to ourselves. So when we're going into the future, you know, and I believe that the psychedelics, okay, that might fade away. I mean, there was when we went from crystal meth to, well, we went to crank to crystal meth, and everything keeps advancing. They try to, you know, and some of the cannabis that comes from these places that you go get them from are changing. I mean, I'm not afraid to smoke that stuff, man. It sounds like it's really intense. And so everything is kind of moving to try to stay in line with the times, so to speak. But for me, you know, I see a lot of things happening, you know, and I believe for myself that our future children and the future of our kids, they're going to be making better choices. There's just some things that man can't control. You know, man can't control what's happening in the planet. They have no clue what Creator's plan is. And until you get connected with yourself and your high self and your connections to joy and your inspirations and what drives you to be inspired, you know, only then will you get a clue about what your path is about. So what's so wonderful and beautiful about all this is that we all have our own paths that we are creating for ourselves. And it's in those paths that we call different medicines to us to work with us in our highest demand in our identity. And to be inspired by that and to move forward, you know, it's going to really make a difference in our world. You know, one leadership role, if I can help 10,000 people before I cross over, I've done my job, you know, and I'm happy about that, and I don't have any regrets. The future, what the Earth is trying to bring, I believe, is a choice for everyone to decide for themselves. You know, this is not about the human collective where we follow each other about what everyone else thinks. Because I believe that the Earth is going to teach us. So we're going to wake up feeling different, you know. And let me give you a time here. All right, so Master Kathumi says 2017, April 23rd, keep that on your calendar, because that's when things are going to really start to shift. And as that shift happens, it doesn't mean it's going to be the end of the world. It doesn't mean that we're going to be visited by galactic beings from other planets, or it could. It means that the shift is going to be about choices, inner choices that we're all going to have to make. And these are life-changing choices that, you know, will feel the support of that spiritual aspect, whether they be ascended masters, whether they be angels, whether they be stones, whether they be crystals, whether it be ayahuasca, whether it be, you know, peyote or cannabis. You know, the human connection that we have from our soul and our spirit is so undying. It can't be broken. It can't be removed. It can't be erased. You know, we're here to stay. And by our imprints that we place on this planet, you know, our imprints all connected to each other is going to make a difference, whether you know it or not. People are going to live their lives and do what they do, but because we are created by God, it begins with God and ends with God. So that's my spew. That's what I'm sticking to, and thank you for having me on your show.
Yes, and since you mentioned that date, April 23rd, 2017, it's kind of interesting. Your friend there gave an exact date. They always say you shouldn't be giving exact dates because you risk having egg in your face, because timelines are not based on when, they're based on what. Time is an illusion. So I guess maybe the reason he's giving an exact date is because from his vantage point, that is the highest probability of something happening. But regardless, I have always shied away from giving exact dates because I prefer to not go by when. I prefer to go by what. But that's just me. What do I know? So anyway, with that being said, the live feed will be over in 90 seconds. So I guess I'll bring this show to an end. And Matthew, I'll tell you the same thing I tell all of my guests at the end of every show. This is always the most emotional part of every show for me. Matthew, you are a fascinating individual. I'm very glad you were able to come on after all this time. It was a pleasure. It was a great show. I'll make sure this show gets spread far and wide. I'll upload it to YouTube and all that, post it on social media networks. And if you ever want to, if you ever feel that there's the need, you want to get some, sorry, I got distracted because my cell phone's ringing, but I'm just going to ignore that. If you ever want to talk about something and you feel like you want to get the word out and you want a medium or a source to get that word out, by all means, you're more than welcome to contact me, and maybe I can give you like a half an hour to an hour of show time to talk about that. However, as far as me contacting you or any of my other previous guests go, I probably won't be doing that, because I have made a mission since day one to try to get as many different guests on my show as possible before I give any one specific guest double dips, because I felt that is the fairest, most impartial, and most informative way to do a radio show that seeks to expose the truthful nature of reality. So I need to give thousands upon thousands of other fascinating individuals a chance to have some glory on my show. If I don't ask you to come on my show again, that's the reason why. Please understand that.
No worries. I'm good to go. Thank you for having me.
All right. I loved having you. Take care and good luck. Namaste,
all right.
Matthew.
Souvenir. Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye. All right, folks, that is the end of the show. Life Feed just ended. Next week on the show, I will be having Candace Craw-Goldman, who, well, she might be a little bent because I think her mother recently passed away from a stroke, but hopefully she will be able to come on. She'll be able to get over it and have a good show with me and enlighten us about QHHT, the work of the late Dolores Cannon and all that. So Candace Craw-Goldman next week. And then I don't have anybody for the 27th, but I'm going to be going to Bermuda the week after that. So I won't have a show the week after the 27th, first Wednesday in August. But when I get back, I will have a show on Saturday. And then I'll have, again, go back to my Wednesday schedule. But anyway, just worry about the next week. Candace Craw-Goldman. Let's take this week by week. Namaste, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your trek throughout infinite consciousness. This is Andrew Fisher signing off from Nature of Reality Radio.